The time is now 6:30, and I call this meeting to order. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we'll start with roll call. Stating your name.
Sean Peterson.
Virginia Allen.
Stephanie Walsh.
Linda Beadle. Lisa Harrick.
Yep, for there.
Okay, first we will review and accept the minutes from the February 18th, 2026 meeting.
Madam Chair, I have two changes, if I might.
Yep.
Could we, I'd like to make a motion to add Naomi Smith, who is absent that day, but her name is not listed on this at all as a member of the board. And if you go to the second page, C continued, it says Linda made a motion to accept the policy seconded by Linda. Did you second yourself? Probably.
I seconded it. You seconded it. Okay, perfect.
Which section was that? I'm sorry.
Do you know what motion it was on that one?
Fund balance policy draft.
Okay.
See if we need it first.
Any other adjustments from anyone? No?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Raise your hand. Aye.
Can you tell me, I'm sorry, it's so hard to hear you guys sometimes, who seconded that?
I seconded,
Lynn, you did?
yeah, Lynn, and I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, so now we would move on to citizen participation. I'd like to read that the Board of Finance wishes to promote input on issues related to the agenda items on the current board meeting. In order to do so and to proceed with business of the board, we are asking that individuals provide their name and their address for the record, and we are also asking that all comments be directed to the board and comments be limited to the business at hand. Speakers must adhere to a 3-minute time limit. If anyone would like to come up to speak. Nothing tonight? Okay. We'll move on to new business. First is we will discuss and act upon the financial reports as presented by the Board of Selectmen. Kevin, would you like to present tonight?
Try.
Her highlights are good. Let's go through it.
I'm going to ask if there's any questions, if we can write them down, because most of this is, as you can see, is done by Lisa. So if you can refer to first the general government financial update, or have you had a chance to read through the document that was given? Are there any particular questions you have on that?
I don't know if you can answer this, Mr. Cunningham, the health insurance, because that seems to be my shtick, is currently coming in lower than expected. Do we know why?
At this point, I do not. I can get you an update though, and have Lisa get you that update.
Kevin, I have one for the computer expense in the town and police. It says both are higher than budgeted. Do you know why that's happening?
The company that we have right now has been adding on more things with its annual contracts, like for our Office 365. So the problems we have with the police side of it is that whenever you have a new dispatcher, you're required to have a new license. So that's one of the reasons why, but they are adding more licenses for other things as well. So that's higher than anticipated, so that's why it's going to go. We do anticipate at the end of the year that we'll do the line item transfer all in one shot to cover all of these. We do have enough money in those budgeted areas we can cover.
Thank you.
I see this list. Is there anything that you're concerned with at this point that others this?
For the most part, I think we have enough. We do have enough money to cover anything for line item transfers. I think we, as we all know, we had a very difficult winter.
Yep.
We've definitely gone over in that particular line item for budget for both sand, salt, overtime. So we know that we'll be coming up later on with that request for line item transfer to cover. So that's one of the things. The other things we have a concern with, for those who don't know, we had a couple of issues recently, the last couple of weeks. One of the issues was our fuel company made a delivery to the fuel and put the wrong fuel in one of the tanks. That took a day and a half to fix. And the company that did the fueling is paying for everything. So that was that one area, sand and salt and snow, and it was the other. We did have another issue with the ECC building. We've been talking about how the equipment's old up there, we need to replace and whatever. We had an issue with the boiler where it went out over the weekend. We have first we had to have a company come in to check the boiler itself to see what might have been wrong. There was an electrical issue with it. The electric company came in the next day. They got it up and running, but they said, kind of their words, for how long we don't know. There was also a sprinkler issue up there as well with a compressor that went out, so the sprinklers were running nonstop. That's been resolved again today. We have two compressors. One's been fixed. They're going to fix the other one. We'll cover those when they come in for billing.
Any major equipment failures with all the stuff?
Throughout the snowstorms we've had, the major snowstorms, we had a few of the vehicles which had gone down, were repaired during the snowstorm. I think at this point we're okay. There were some issues for accidents that occurred. Always happens in a snowstorm, and those are all already sent over to Kermit for review.
Kevin, question on overtime for supervisors. Would they not fall under exempt status as supervising, or is that a contract issue?
You're talking about which department, like highway?
Department?
Highway is a working supervisor, so they fall under the contract.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions, concerns? No?
For the transfer station, the 200,000, what would you like to see done with that, Mr. Cunningham? Do you want that going back to the fund account? Do you-
That's what it's going to go.
Oh, it's going.
Yeah, so we're not expending and doing anything with that at all. It goes back to the
Yeah,
fund.
I knew the transfer station, I read that you had, had been
Yep.
canceled out. I just didn't know if there was something else.
Unfortunately, it was put into that line,
Right.
but we're not going to expend that. It goes back to the fund balance.
Thank you.
I do have another question. So we had some donations. One of them was to Project Pin. None of those have been expensed out and paid to any of them?
Correct. And last week, I put an email out there saying, please pay those out.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to say that Lisa does very well putting this together for us. I really love getting these, the highlights every month.
How is our HR working out?
Very good. Yeah, those things would have normally come into my office. I appreciate it very much. I don't have to deal with those individual issues, but she's very thorough, knows her issues very well. and has been working over some issues with Department of Labor, making sure that all the employees know. She's going to have some workshops for different items, like an FMLA workshop for all the supervisors. So not only reactive, but proactive.
Any further questions? If we have a motion to accept?
I'll ask Kevin, I could ask Courtney, is the health insurance situation the same with the school and the town?
You mean for this year or for next?
I can speak to this. Ready to get a microphone?
Probably.
So it's interesting, I just actually had someone text me about the comment in the report on the health insurance. So the health insurance rates coming in lower than expected, what that refers to in the report she put together is that the school and the town have been working together to gather projected rates from Cigna. We talked about Anthem. What that refers to specifically is that we were given previously projected rates for the State Department plan, and those anticipated rates ended up being a little lower than we anticipated. For us, we still don't know if we move plans, and that decision hasn't fully been made because it hasn't been accepted yet. You have to be accepted to the state plan. That application process just opened last Monday.
We submitted our initial application, both the town and the school, on the same day. I think it was Monday that we did that.
We won't actually know if we move to that if more people will come on the insurance. So we're good with our projected numbers that we put. But some of those rates did come in a little lower. We've gotten e-chip information, which we can speak to, but we know what our numbers need to be. We also need to hold about 16% in reserve, 16.5% in reserve, I believe it is, because even after July 1st, claims can still come in for 12 months. So we know that we need to have in our reserve almost $1.1 million for the town and the schools to pay out any claims that may come in for the 12 months after we move off that insurance.
Thank you.
I'm sure Kevin knew all that, I just got it.
Thank you for coming up and speaking in Lisa's absence. And she did give us a heads up that she would be out of state before tonight, that she wasn't going to be able to make tonight's meeting. So thank you for speaking for her.
Make a motion, we accept the financial report of the town as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Kevin. Okay. So we will move on to discuss and act upon the financial report as presented by the Board of Education.
Absolutely. So in your packet from the Board of Education side, we did give the Board of Education an update on our audit status for right now. As you guys are aware, obviously our audit was accepted at the February Board of Finance meeting. Both the town and the school side are working on the single state and single federal audit. I've spoken with Lisa. We've both gotten requests from the audit, and we both completed the current requests. We have not heard an update as far as when that will be completed yet. For fiscal year 26, for the Board of Education side, as you can see in the report, the health insurance is one of the object codes that we are keeping a close eye on. Obviously, Mr. Renton spoke about that, so if there's any further questions, like he mentioned, we are keeping a very close eye on how much money we need to have in that reserve account as of June 30th. So we do have, we currently are meeting the necessary reserve as of June 30th right now, but depending on how much claims come in between the months of February through June, how many stop-loss refunds we're going to get, and how much money we're depositing in. We really just need to make sure that we're hitting that 16.5% target, and that is both the town and the school combined. So it's been wonderful working with Lisa to make sure that we are hitting that exact number by June 30th. The other object code, nothing new, is our tuition account code. We've had a couple of changes even within this past month, so we are keeping a close eye on that as well. We have not received the excess cost grant reimbursements numbers yet, so hopefully the state will release those soon. In my report, I did put for grants that there was no changes to report at this time, but we did receive one update for grants. It's the District Repair and Improvement Project Grant, the DRIP grant, which is for school repair projects. And so that number did change from the initial number released from the state. It was about $2,000 less than what was in a previous report. And then for facilities, the only thing that we are obviously still working on is our heating repairs. We've had some recent new ones come up at Moosup that we are currently meeting on to make sure that we get those repaired soon. The Shepherd Hill unit that we are using that 2% set-aside account for, the work was scheduled for during April break. We had it previously scheduled in March, but given our calendar changes and obviously the heating in the building is, we've been monitoring the temperature in the cafeteria, so we moved that to to April break, so when there's no students in the building.
Courtney, do you have any expectation that the state won't come through with the $118,000 that we're short right now? Is that what I'm looking at?
So the $118,000 is not the number from the state. So the amount that I'm waiting to hear from the state is our excess cost grant reimbursement. Currently, we are slated to receive, I believe it's $440,000. So all the districts apply for this grant. You have to do a submission on December 1st and then March 1st. So basically, you have to give all the documentation of how many students you have in out-of-district placements, what your total excess cost is. So the district is responsible for a certain dollar amount for all students. And if, say, a student goes above that threshold, so if our threshold is approximately $88,000, say an out-of-district placement can cost up to $150,000. You can apply for that $62,000 that you've paid above your threshold, but you only get a certain percentage of that back. So depending on our free and reduced lunch status and a lot of other factors, there's a whole formula. We are slated to receive, previously it was about 74% of the excess cost amount. But that number changes because it all depends on how much money, how many districts are applying and what they're applying for. There's only one bucket of money to be divvied up by all the school districts. So depending on how much money all the districts are vying for, could change the amount of percentage that we're receiving because of the grant is not 100% funded. It's just a certain dollar amount. So that's why that number does change depending on what districts are applying for on the March 1st submission. So hopefully, typically we get guidance within about a month after that submission of our final number.
Do you have a per seat or per child average cost, or do you do by grade, by school, by level?
Is this pertaining just to the excess cost grant or just in general?
Just in general.
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we,
Sorry. Look, it's an exercise.
no worries. We have a per pupil cost. We put that out, we put out our budget numbers, and the state puts one out. You'll sometimes see a slight difference in how that number comes out because some of the state numbers don't calculate transportation, and transportation, as you know, is a huge part of the budget. What I will say is when we look at tuition numbers, the largest thing that drives tuition numbers being off is transient families and transient students. On Thursday, I had a meeting with our Director of Pupil Services who let me know that a neighboring town identified that a child who's in one of their programs really had lived in Plainfield all year, but the other town hadn't let them know, and they mailed us a $58,000 bill. That can happen. So that's part of the thing driving that. At the same time, we have families that have notified us they may be moving out of district, so some of that is prorated. The tuition number for in and out of district, specifically in special education is going to be a moving target until the end of the year. We count on excess cost for that. The other thing we do is we slow spending in some areas to make sure that we are covered in those places. If you were to ask me the question you asked the town, which is, Paul, does something worry you? I would tell you that at this point I'm more worried about fuel and potential fuel costs and the impact of that than I am about the tuition rates. The tuition we account for and project for, and I can tell you I have an outstanding business manager who's looking at that almost every day. It's hard to predict what the fuel's going to do, and we're watching closely on that.
I can tell you what the fuel's going to do. I paid $4.80 today.
I'm an optimist. But I would say that fuel for buses and for police cars and ambulances and everything else is something that we're watching very closely right now. It's in our meeting today when I talked to principals about spending things we were looking at, I was talking about fuel.
Thank you. Mr. Brent, I have one question on that. So in your budgets that have been given to the Board of Finance, both on, I guess I'll address this to Mr. Cunningham after you were both together, in the budgets that we've received, the excess of these inflated costs has not been factored into this year's budget?
The budgets we submitted for next year?
Right, correct.
When we submitted those budgets, we were not looking at the fuel prices we're looking at now.
Okay.
It was before I think it's called the Strait of Horwitz, may have closed, but we have not adjusted our budgets based on that. If those costs go up, I'll have to go back to my Board of Ed and tell them that we need to adjust our budget within the approved amount that the town gave us, and then we would have to make those changes.
Okay, thank you. I just want us to be prepared if that should happen.
I think that's an ongoing discussion that everyone's going to be having. So we certainly have been talking about it.
Okay.
And since I'm up here at the mic, I do want to apologize to the Board of Finance. My son's home from college. I promised him I'd go bowling. So as soon as the Board of Ed is done, I'm going to hop out of here. But if you have any questions, you've got me till you let me know.
Thank you.
So, Courtney, I'm seeing that that we're being removed from the Cigna, and I'm assuming you guys are all over that.
For the health insurance, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we have met, right, so the last page of your packet is the letter that we did receive. So we are no longer with Cigna self-funded insurance program as of June 30th. That's why we had mentioned we did put in the initial application last Monday, both the town and the school. We've also met with our insurance broker, and we'll meet with him again next week to make sure that we are on track and figuring out the timeline, notifying employees, making sure we have everything switched over for July 1.
Any further questions? You looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the school. Support it.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next would be a presentation and discussion from American Legion Ambulance pertaining to the proposed contract. If you're willing to come here tonight. No, I don't think so. I don't think that's it.
I'm willing to come out at night. You guys just let me know. So just to introduce myself, my name is Ray Wood. I am the Chief of the American Legion Ambulance as of January 1. So I've got to get into all of this just in time for budget season. So this is a wonderful time to be here. And we have Andrew Kelly here.
My name's Andrew Kelly. I'm the chairman of the committee for American Legion Ambulance.
So gave you guys a PowerPoint presentation that I created to really kind of discuss who we are, where we're at financially, and kind of why we're asking for this post-contract. So we were founded in 1948 by the American Legion Post 91. We technically no longer have ties with the American Legion, but we kept the name as part of our history and an homage to them. We're comprised of a combination of volunteer board of directors, which Andrew Kelly is our chairman. We also have another board of director member here as well. One paid chief, which is myself, a supervisor, and 30 paid volunteer EMTs and EMRs. We are a 501c3 organization, so we are a nonprofit, and we have 3 basic life support ambulances. Last year, for calls for service, we did 2,604 calls. We had to squeeze in that extra 4 just to say we went over 2,600. In the town of Plainfield, we did 2,066 calls, so that's 79% of the call volume is here in this town. Last year, too, we took on transfers, which accounted for 167 transfers. Unfortunately, right now, Dave Kimball has reached out to Hartford Healthcare, so I assume that number is going to drop drastically. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into how ambulance billing works. We also service the town of Sterling, which accounts for 11% of our calls. And we've also partnered with our surrounding towns, providing mutual aid, which accounted for 2% of our calls. So in the next part of it here, you can see our historical view of our fund balance. So these come straight from our 990 forms, which are posted as a 501c3. They're posted right on the IRS website. When I looked the other day, for some reason, 2022 was not there. So when I emailed the chairwoman, I gave her everything including 2022. We have that in-house. I just don't know why it's not on the IRS website. I don't work for the IRS, thank God. But what you can see is that literally the last time we actually even made money was in 2016. The rest of the time we've been losing money on average. When you average between 2016 and 2024, what you can see, it's about $51,000, almost $52,000 annually. The last 2 years that you see highlighted is where we started receiving town funding. So prior to 2022, we actually received, or 2023, I should say, we actually received no town funding. We were strictly for free here. There I gave you another bar graph about the annual difference. So a lot of people go, well, you guys can bill. We talk about billing. Of course we can bill. If somebody has insurance, we actually have to bill their insurance. We can't just say, oh, well, today we're going to make the exception for so-and-so. We actually do have to send a bill to the insurance company. Our rates are actually set by the state of Connecticut. We don't actually we don't pull a number out of our hat saying, okay, we're going to bill this much this year for each person. Annually, those rates, there's a potential for a rate increase. We do apply every year for those increases. You can see every ambulance service in the state of Connecticut, what their rates are, what the state allows them to bill, right on the OEMS website. So currently, we're allowed to bill $941 for a basic life support transport. We can bill $22.92 per mile, and we can, if we have a helicopter, instead of transporting someone to the hospital, we bring them to the helicopter for them to transport to a higher level of care, like Hartford, St. Francis, Providence, wherever. We can bill $671 for that. So the example I give you is that we bill the 941, and where you see here on the mileage there, that's the average I pulled for the last year of the average mileage to the hospital, which was 9.45 miles. So it'd be an additional $216.59. So our subtotal altogether would be $1,157.59. You think, oh, that's great. Medicare, Medicaid, who make up for 56% of our billing, they say we're only going to pay $387.47, which leaves $770.12 that we cannot bill, we cannot recuperate, we cannot get any additional funds for. Because by law, we are required with Medicare and Medicaid patients to accept the bill that's paid in full with that $387. So imagine telling your plumber, go to the grocery store, or as we mentioned already, when you get the oil delivery, no, I'm only going to pay a third of that bill. And you have to consider it paid in full. So while we think about, well, it was a $1,000 bill, the reality is we're only getting reimbursed for about a third of that bill. And that is by law. One thing I shared with you here is EMS in the headlines. In the state of West Virginia right now, they've lost 26 ambulance services in the last year. And so what they're doing right now, their House just passed a bill, and it's going off to their Senate, to try to make up for that, to actually start funding EMS. The concerns we have, of course, as we're thinking about it, we've already mentioned with the schools, fuel would be one thing, but the other concerns we have, as I think about the EMS, is the Medicaid reimbursements. Medicare and Medicaid, as we've seen, there's feuds between the states and the federal government right now. There's a possibility of losing funding. And so that's a concern, because if we lose funding, we're going to lose more of that reimbursement, which means it's going to hurt every single ambulance service from the largest to the smallest. So these are some things that we actually consider. One state, West Virginia, is really trying to be proactive about this and work on it. So the last year, I got these numbers from our billing company. The last year we billed almost $2.5 million. A little bit over that. We received $925,000. That's a significant difference. If we ever got the $2.5 million, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I would not ask the town of Plainfield or the town of Sterling for a dime. We would be doing pretty well. Unfortunately, we do not receive that kind of funding. Even with the transfers, last year, when we started April through to December, we billed $168,000 and only received $49,000. So this is 36% of what is billed is what we're receiving in actual funds. And this is, again, we're not allowed to send a bill out to somebody else. Again, I want to put this out there too. We're not trying to put people into debt because they needed our services. People don't predict that they're going to need an ambulance. If you can't predict that, let me know. I want to know that right away. But we're not trying to harm people, but we also are running a business as well. This year, like I said, for transfers, we've billed $31,000, and we've only received about almost $6,000 back. And as I said earlier, with Hartford Healthcare now setting up at Day Kimball, that's a possibility we're going to lose a lot of those transfers. And so that money that you see there is only temporary, essentially. You can ask too about why we aren't doing transfers right out of the local ER here. And there's a company that they have to go through that we have to be approved from. And so far they've chosen not to even get back to us. We have asked, because we would love to take somebody back from the ER that's right here and get them back to local nursing homes, their own home, things like that. Our fleet right now, our youngest ambulance is 2021 with 106,000 miles. And our oldest ambulance is a 2014 with over 180,000 miles. Total repair costs just in the last year alone were $39,000, almost $40,000 just in repairs. With an aging fleet like that, you can imagine an ambulance is not like the normal car that drives around and taken care of and doesn't have hard braking and hard acceleration. Unfortunately, an ambulance is not like that, and so repair costs do happen, and the life expectancy of them is, generally speaking, about 5 years and a little over 100,000 miles before you really start considering replacing them or paying massive amounts in repair bills. This year alone, with one of our trucks, we've paid almost $11,000 in repairs. That's our oldest one, the 2014. And it's back out again. So, not winning with that one, unfortunately. Even recently, one of the newest ambulance had an issue with its fan, which cost us about another $1,000 right there. And then, of course, we were unfortunately plagued. This was mentioned earlier by the fuel that was tainted here in the town. but thankfully that will be taken care of and out of our pockets. So to replace these ambulances, which would actually help us with reducing repair costs, you look at the next part here. Replacement of ambulances, there's different types of ambulances, but the repair costs range anywhere between a replacement for a new truck is anywhere between $120,000 for a van style ambulance, upwards to well over $300,000, if not more. And then you have to include all of the equipment. There's requirements, which is known as the triple K spec. And so we actually have requirements for how an ambulance is supposed to be designed, safety features. State of Connecticut has requirements for minimum equipment. So when we factor all of that together, you're looking anywhere from the low end of $169,000 of outfitting the ambulance, upwards to well over $360,000, if not more. So we can't just say, oh, we'll just replace the ambulance. It's not something that we can do, especially when we're losing $51,000, almost $52,000 annually. Our building as well. Our building was built back in 2009. It's almost 20 years old. It's starting to show that it's 20 years old. Our fob system that we use to get in and out to keep the building secure. There are currently only 2 people left in the country that can actually repair that system. The last quote I got just to replace what we have existing is about $7 grand. Our exhaust system that needs to be installed, which is coming down the line, is going to be an OSHA requirement. That's going to be tens of thousands of dollars to install that. We need IT upgrades, classroom upgrades. Our HVAC system is original to the building, so as I look forward to the future, that's going to need some repairs as well. Our pay right now for our employees, we're very much on the low end of the scale. I would love to be able to bring that up so we can bring them up to more of a market standard. And I've had people that I know that I've tried to recruit, and they said, they flat out told me, well, I can work over here for this much money. And so that's one of those things that are actually hindering me from being able to hire quality EMTs. Our benefits, while I am grateful for what we do have, our benefits need some revamping as well, because it's another thing that would help make us marketable as an organization. And then another thing that's going to be required soon is annual physicals, and so that's going to be another cost that we're going to have. On that next page here, you can actually see the funding of the ambulances throughout Windham County. Woodstock EMS is at the highest with $525,000. I actually just read on Winnie the other day that Putnam has approved well, I shouldn't say have approved, it's part of their budgeting process, as all towns are going into right now, but they're looking at $400,000 just for Putnam EMS, which last year with Thompson and Putnam, they initially budgeted $365,000, but they had to supplement another $120,000 for that. KB Ambulance receives from the town of Tiltonley $215,000, but I know they're going for an increase as well. And then for us, last year we received $80,000. We asked for $100,000, we received $80,000. Not complaining, we are grateful for what's given to us. From the town of Plainfield, and of course, and then the town of Sterling also gave us an additional $20,000. So we're actually kind of, even when you look at the area, we're well below what the other towns are giving us. As I mentioned earlier, you can see here the history of the ambulance funding in the town of Plainfield. Prior to 2022, we received nothing. So the last few years is when we actually started to receive $80,000 essentially annually. This year we're requesting $250,000. We're trying to actually now make up for the losses that we've had and be able to start repair our ambulances. Replace one of our ambulances is a goal, so that way we can reduce our repair costs and get our employees up to the market standard, fix our building up. So when we talk about billing, or when we talk about funding, I know it's been mentioned, well, this is a 200-something% increase, which I can't argue that math. The math is math, right? But what does this equate to a tax bill? And so based off of what I have seen thus far from online with the approved budget from 2025 to 2026, sorry, a little tongue-tied there for a second. With the current 80,000, it equates to 0.4 mils. If we increase the additional 170,000, it goes up to 0.1 mils. When I was on the Plainfield Town Council, that was the number that I actually cared more about. I can look at a number and say, well, that's a huge increase, and wonder about it, and of course ask questions. Of course, you should ask questions like that. But what does this equate to my taxpayers? And what does this number actually look like? If we're able to get this funding, this will help us to continue to give stable 24/7 ambulance coverage, as well as we do provide a second ambulance throughout the day for 8 hours. I would like to actually expand those hours a little bit more to 12 hours a day because it is actually needed. We do have mutual aid coming in right now for the second crew calls that we're missing because we don't have that ambulance on. It's more of these evening shifts is where we're missing calls. This would also allow us to purchase a new ambulance to decrease the cost of maintenance. And with a contract, this is one thing that I had mentioned to the first selectman. If we go to a contract, this helps you in the budgeting process because now you're not sitting here going, well, what are they coming back to us next year for? You already know that answer. This helps us in knowing that we have stable income coming in as well. There is a trap that I want to talk about. What we've been seeing throughout the state of Connecticut, larger ambulance services that are hospital-based are starting to either buy up ambulance services or they are offering towns almost a sweetheart deal. The problem I find with that is that the mouse never understands why the cheese is free. And what I mean by that is if you have a larger service come in and buy us up or take us out, eventually they are going to come to you and they're going to say, oh, Town of Plainfield, we're only going to charge you a small amount of money. And then they buy up the next town, the next town, and the next town. And then the next thing you know, they say, oh, Town of Plainfield, by the way, here's that larger bill now. And you have no recourse left unless you want to try to restart your own ambulance, which is going to cost you far more money. And so that is the concern I have when I think about EMS, having local EMS involved. With local EMS too, you have people that are dedicated to your community. Most of our employees are actually live here right in town. I live in the next town over in Killingly. But I definitely have a heart to take and continue on doing what we do here for the towns of Plainfield and Sterling. But we definitely need some funds. Other than that, any questions? Yeah.
Chief, I appreciate you being here. Yeah. And I have a barrage of questions.
I'm sure.
So, but I am of the mind that me personally, I like to have things local, certainly. In the beginning, you mentioned that I understood you to say 38 volunteers.
Paid/volunteer, I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my apologies.
Okay.
And right now, if I may give some clarification to that, it's mainly paid, and the problem is what we saw with the global pandemic, and I've been doing EMS since 2011, what we saw with the global pandemic is we lost tons of volunteers nationwide, and people were looking at this saying, why would I dare do this if I am going to risk my life for something like this? We lost tons of people, and we've not recuperated. In fact, the state of Connecticut right now just got through passing legislation to try to help with recruitment and retention when it comes to police and fire. We always get forgotten as an MS, unfortunately. We get thrown into the next bill, maybe, if we're lucky. But, that's definitely one thing, is that unfortunately we're more paid than anything because of the fact that we have a lack of volunteers. So I did want to give some clarification. I apologize if I gave a little confusion there.
You mentioned between 2016 and 2024 that you lost $52,000 annually and you're coming to us, but you didn't come to us in 16, 17. How did you cover that deficit?
We had a surplus enough where we were able to take care of everything in-house. But unfortunately, the prices have gone up and we've lost that.
And I will say with the global pandemic as well, you know, you're going to hear me talk about a lot of that. That really affected a lot of the prices of medical supplies. I could get almost everything for half the cost, you know, 6, 7 years ago. So, as opposed to now where everything's just about double when it comes to medical supplies. So that's the unfortunate part. But yeah, as our chairman said, they had enough of supply. I kind of looked at the same thing. Like I said, I came in July as the chief. I've been really poring over these numbers, and I asked the same question. I was like, why didn't you ask for this earlier? You know, we definitely needed that a lot earlier.
So it was really enlightening that you mentioned all about Medicare and Medicaid and billing, and you're not allowed to. I'm a senior, and I spend time at the senior center, most of my friends, acquaintances, and it's common for them to say, you know, that we call ambulances if we fall, because we can't get up, as I'm sure you're well aware. But, so I've heard people say, oh, don't call the ambulance because it's going to cost you $500. And I don't hear this just from one person. I hear it over and over. So why do I hear that? Because what I'm hearing from you is it doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the reality is that they need a lift assist there. I'll start out with the simplest. If they just need help getting up, the fire departments will come out for that. We will, with the fire department's ability, we will come out for that as well. And we do not bill for any of that stuff. The concern obviously would be that it would depend on their insurance as well. And if there's co-pays, if there's other things like that that are involved with the insurance company. But generally speaking, when it's straight Medicare, Medicaid, that's the numbers that you see is what we're allowed to bill and we can get. And I pulled all these numbers straight from our billing company. They gave me a synopsis. Unfortunately, I can't share that synopsis with you because it actually has patient names on it. So for privacy's sake, obviously I can't do that.
You can't redact and send us...
I could. It's 40 pages, but I could if you'd like. I would be more than happy.
Well, I'm going to hold that because I have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Don't even ask me. Maybe I only have 1.
Could I chime in for a minute too, Linda? I also am confused by that because I have an elderly father who recently had to use ambulance services, and I just paid half of a $900 bill to American Ambulance, so I'm not sure, and he has Medicare, but he has like a program that he pays through it. So those are what you're saying, possibly those patients do get billed. It's not just a straight Medicare.
Yeah, so insurance is it is a tricky thing. I have a sister who does HR, and I asked her one day about insurance and all that, and her answer to me was, I never deal with the insurance part. I have someone else that does that. She likes doing the onboarding with folks there because insurance can be very confusing, unfortunately. I got these numbers straight from our billing company, not insurance company. I know that for myself with my own insurance there, if I call for an ambulance, there would be a copay that would have to be paid, as well as anything that's left over because it's commercial insurance as opposed to Medicare, Medicaid. I got a little while before I can do that. But it really does depend on if it's, you know, Medicare Part A, Part B, Part D, you know, so there's so much that can be a factor into that. And so that I will say that, yes, I can appreciate where you're coming from, and without knowing the full details, I couldn't give you a good solid answer, unfortunately.
So I got
because insurance is a pain.
I got a question, piggybacking on what they're kind of saying. If you send an ambulance to my house and I'm having a cardiac event, and are you the only person coming, or are they sending another ambulance service also up to ride down with me to the hospital?
So that's a great question.
Is that where some of the billing extras come from?
So, no, that's actually an excellent question. So, when you call 911, what they do is the dispatcher will do what's known as EMD, emergency medical dispatching. They'll ask a slew of questions. I've done this dispatching before, usually I get yelled at, I've gotten yelled at saying, well, just send the ambulance. It's like, we are, but we also need to ask these questions, because we want to make sure we get the appropriate resources. Because we're a BLS service, so basic life support, if you're having some kind of cardiac event, stroke, altered mental status, diabetic emergencies, anything that would be considered a higher level of care or advanced life support. Right now in the town of Plainfield, if it's anything south of 14, American Ambulance comes up as the paramedic unit, and anything north of 14 is keeping ambulance that comes in as the paramedic unit.
So are we billed twice for that? One from you and one from American?
The answer is yes, no.
So I'm wondering if that's where they're seeing the higher numbers.
Right. So we have bundle billing agreements with these agencies there, and that's more so for Medicare patients. So that way there's only technically one bill. We're the ones that have to end up, we receive all the funding, and then we have to pay American or KB a certain percentage of that, of what we receive. And that's all, again, regulated by the state of Connecticut, what can be billed. If it's a commercial service, it's a possibility that there are two bills. And again, it depends on the insurance. So again, there's so many factors that come into ambulance billing. I kind of gave you the generalized answer for this, to be honest with you. But when I looked at everything, again, straight from our billing company, and the percentages that they gave of whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or Medicare, but it's like Blue Cross Medicare or Anthem Medicare, Aetna Medicare or whoever, that all kind of plays into the same factors, because keep in mind the insurance companies, their biggest goal is not to pay. And so they look at what Medicare does, and they say, let's try to monopolize on that. And if they can, they're going to gladly give you the bill first. That's the problem there. Like I said, it's far more complicated. I don't pretend like I understand it all. I mean, to be honest with you with that. That is definitely, there's whole classes on coding and billing, and then the insurance industry itself.
So I've got another question, but
Yeah.
I think the chair is probably the one that's got to answer this. You have been there long enough.
Yeah.
When American Legion was involved, and we're heavily involved in American Legion, how were you guys funded? How was that all, because the town wasn't paying us.
You mean when the American Legion over on the moose up there?
When you were going before and you were operating, where were you getting your funding? Was it just off of billing?
Yes.
Or was the American Legion subsidizing you somehow?
No.
Or were you knocking doors asking us for donations?
Yeah.
Because I almost remember you knocking doors when I was a kid.
American Legion and American Ambulance had split years ago. The exact date, I don't know. I don't remember. Bernie, any idea how many years we've been apart?
Right before we moved, maybe in 2000.
We separated from American Legion, and then we went to our own billing and stuff. So we've lost that support from the American Legion.
Right, and that would have also been at a time where it was almost all volunteer. So that would also be a big factor into this. And just in the last, like I said, since the global pandemic, there is where you really started seeing a big transition paid, mostly paid.
Yeah, at that time, it's strictly volunteer. The chief was volunteer. Everybody was volunteer. And the only expense we had was the equipment and very little at that time. And we didn't have a building. We were housed. Well, we did have one over in Moose Up.
You had one in Moose Up. It was a
Small little shed. And then Plainfield was kind enough to let us house one on this end of town. So, which took care of
Plainfield ambulance.
Yeah, which helped us out at that time. Then the American Legion decided to, put our billing up and put it in one place.
So to go off of Sean's statement just now, what are you doing for revenue? Are you producing any revenue?
It's only billing. That's really where our only revenue comes in, is that billing. Like I said, we billed last year 2.5 million, a little bit over that, and we received 900,000, a little over that. So, and our billing company, when I looked at the accounts there were very few accounts that had zero where we got nothing out of the insurance. Because there are some times when, like car accidents are probably the perfect example where you see a delay in receiving any funds for that, because those can take, especially if it's litigated, those can take years before those claims are paid out. So
What was your operating expenses last year?
that was roughly well over,
I'm not up on that with you.
yeah, I want to say it was definitely well over 900, almost $1 million last year alone.
I have some questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Linda, you want that?
No, by all means, we're here to answer all your questions tonight.
I'm down to two, Ginny.
Okay.
You came before us in 2024, maybe?
Last year.
And the year before, and requested money, which we gave you, I'm not sure if it was 80, 60,
We came to you and asked for 100,000. We received 80,000, which we appreciate.
not last year, the year before.
Year before,
Same.
yeah,
And
same
the
thing.
presentation was that it was a one ask, and that it was going to be used to get
Licensure.
Transfer license.
licensure and training to be able to transport further, or,
Yes.
anyway, what happened to that?
Well, as you said that we got our transfer license, we started doing transfers out of Thank Kimball, and now Hartford Health came in and started taking over that spot. We're anticipating hopefully to get over into the emergency room here at Bacchus, but that's under contract with somebody else, and they won't even acknowledge. All I want to do is just pick up that patient that's been sitting there for 7, 8 hours that just need to be transported.
Who's that on the contract with?
So Hartford themselves uses a company known as CLC, and we have reached out to try to get involved with that. I have talked a little bit with Hartford about that, and I can't really go too deep into those discussions, unfortunately. But I will say that they pretty much told me, come to us later and talk about it. So right now they're using either their own ambulance service, or they'll use, they actually just bought up ASM, which is out of Manchester. Hartford did.
Did Hartford buy American Ambulance also?
What's that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hartford also bought American Ambulance as well. Yeah, they've been in a buying spree. Them, Trinity out of, which is St. Francis, is their major hospital. They have their own ambulance service now. They've been buying a lot of commercial ambulances as well as smaller ambulances. So you're seeing these larger companies start buying up everything.
So, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but I'm gonna. What makes you think that a company that owns their own ambulance service is gonna use you to transport?
I don't. Honestly, I don't think they will, because they're looking at trying to keep that money in.
I'm just trying to be realistic.
No, realistically, you're right. They're trying to keep that
That's
money.
why they're trying to keep you out.
Right, exactly. They're trying to keep that money in-house, but I will tell you that having talked to the nurses there, they would love us to just come in, because sometimes they're having patients sit in that ER for hours on end, 8, 9, 10 hours, waiting for an ambulance to come transfer them out while we're just sitting up 5 minutes down the road.
It's aggravating that the state's allowing them to create a monopoly.
Well,
I would agree with you.
that was one reason why I was trying to get the transfer license and getting up here at Bacchus ER. I don't want to take over the whole transfer out of there. I just want to take whatever they need our help with. If you need our help, we're there.
Dave Kimball was utilizing KD ambulance for the longest time. We were backing up KD when they were busy. And now that Hartford's been there, KD's seen a significant increase. And we've seen, I don't think I've even heard of Dave Kimball calling us now at this point. So.
The other thing with our transfer license is that we can go out to nursing homes and we can go to family homes.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we can go to family homes, like if you got an elderly or whatever that needs to be transported, but it's not 911, we are licensed to do that now. Before, we were not able to do it. We could only do 911 calls.
The caveat to that, though, is there has to be medical necessity in that, or else there would be a significant dose of patient, which we're not trying to put people into massive amounts of that.
Now,
I,
one more question.
yeah.
What was your shortfall last year financially?
Those numbers, you just dropped that information off to our accountant last year, right? Or last month. Sorry, I've been up since 2:30 this morning. Good grief.
Because you say you received in about 925,000, your expenses were about $1 million, so you're short about 750,000.
I have not sat down with my treasurer and talked about that yet. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer. I can do that to you later on.
Yeah, unfortunately, our treasurer also has had some, she's does a wonderful job there, but she's got some family issues as well, so I haven't had a chance to talk to her this past week about things, to get a mindset. I try to talk to her at least once.
So if your shortfall is about $100,000 this year, we'll just use that as a round number possibly.
At least.
But you're asking us for 250?
Yeah, 250,000. We have to replace equipment and upgrade our payroll for our employees to retain qualified employees.
And what are you looking for an increase for your employees, and how many actual paid employees do you have?
So what I would be looking, and I haven't fully discussed this with our committee, but I'm looking at least, right now for this area, EMTs are being paid at a minimum of about $23 an hour is the going rate. Statewide, I've seen upwards to $28 an hour. I'm not looking to pay people $28 an hour, don't worry about that part. But I would like to at least get us up to around $23 an hour, which is a $2 an hour increase for our employees. Right now, we have 4 volunteers, and the rest of them are all paid.
And how much is that? How many is that?
About 26.
26 individuals. Okay.
Right.
26 include the volunteers?
Well, no, 26 paid and 4 volunteers. Yeah.
Well, let's clarify on volunteers, is that they also get a stipend.
Okay.
It's not obviously not an hourly rate.
It's, yes, they're not on the clock, they get paid by the breath.
Yeah.
If they'll sit there all day and not get paid, but if they go out on the ambulance, they get a stipend.
I have to be honest, gentlemen, this math isn't really adding up to me because I do benefits administration, so I know what it looks like from the insurance side.
Okay.
So you're saying that you're billing on an average non-advanced life support run, you're billing the insurance company $1,100. Let's just throw out a figure, okay? And you get maybe 80% of that if you're lucky.
Not 80%.
How much?
So $1,100, but we're only getting less than 400.
Less than 400.
Correct.
And then do you balance bill?
Balance bill?
Yeah. Do you take the balance between what you bill, Medicare, Medicaid, Cigna, Aetna, whoever it is, and do you take whatever's left that you don't get paid and charge it back to the family or the individual that's had been run?
Yeah. So again, Medicare, Medicaid doesn't allow us to do that.
So you are not allowed to balance bill?
Yeah, right. With 56% of our patients at Medicare, Medicaid, that's a significant amount. It's almost 60% of our patients, 60% of our call.
I had looked at your presentation, and I noticed the trend, how you've been losing money for quite a few years here, but it also looked like you had a good amount of savings where that money was coming from. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's based off what I saw from our 990 forms.
It's about $600,000 right now?
That was, yeah, so if you look back in 2016, it was, I believe it was well over $1 million there that was in the bank then. That was when we were far more, I think they only had 5 paid employees and everybody else was volunteer. Now we flip the script at this point, so that, payrolls are largest expense at this point.
But it's around 600,000 now,
Right now, yeah, roughly.
Did you say you have 600,000 in the bank, or did I misunderstand something?
That's what I understand it to be at this point. Andrew, you see those numbers more than I do.
That's 2 ambulances.
What's that?
I don't like them.
Yeah.
I gotta talk with Melissa.
Okay.
I can't definitely answer that one right now.
Yeah, that was 2024's 990 that I pulled that from. Of course, we don't have 25.5 yet to.
I just have one more thing, and then I promise. Although I don't promise, I don't have that.
Ask as many questions as you like.
I appreciate everything you've said. I don't want you to think that I'm
Yeah.
right. But you're not specific with your financials. I think we'd like to see, and I'm just making a statement. I understand there's names. We've had issues with the police department where they redact the names, that we know that that can be done and you can present more concrete numbers. But I do have a real serious question. Why isn't this coming to us through the Board of Selectmen? Is there a reason why you didn't go to them?
We did go to the Board of Selectmen. We've gone to them. We talked to the first selectman back in January to talk to, start the discussion of this.
I was at that Board of Selectmen meeting, and it was my understanding that they requested, I have 3 selectmen in here, right? That they requested an audit, for you to present us with an audit. So I was curious how you got here before you... Can any of the selectmen help?
What I can say, Linda, is that it was a good suggestion for them to take the opportunity to come out here to discuss with the Board of Finance what the situation is and to answer your question. But they had come to the Board of Selectmen first. And then Kevin can, of course, speak for, I believe we had requested an audit at one point. And then I don't know where that was.
So am I understanding correctly that they've not come back to the Board of Selectmen and produced any of the financials? You're receiving them tonight along with us?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Does that help?
So I will say that I saw on your agenda for this evening was this discussion. And so I reached out to the chairwoman just saying that if you would give us the opportunity, we'd be happy to present. So that's why the agenda, I did notice it was meant to allow that. I also reached out to our first selectman, same presentation, to be honest. So it's nothing new, there's nothing new under the sun here with this one. When it comes to the audit, we did have a discussion in our last committee meeting, and the committee has agreed that it absolutely needs to happen. Right now, they feel that financially it's not feasible as we're consistently losing money there, so we need some kind of funding to be able to even afford that, unfortunately. You know, it's a no-win battle. You know, again, I pride myself on being as transparent as possible and honest as possible with y'all. If I know the answer, I'll give it to you. I'm not going to lie to you about anything because that does nobody good. Doesn't do us good, doesn't do you good. But that is, we have reached out to the
Don't take it personally.
Oh yeah, no.
We put all the departments to the...
Yeah, no. Hey, like I said, I used to be on Killingly's town council, so the town council in Killingly gets to be the Board of Finance and the legislative body. So, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and I did the same exact thing. So I appreciate you guys, I really
Thank
do.
you so much.
And I appreciate the questions that you're asking because you want transparency. You want to be able to go back to your fellow citizens and say, hey, we grilled them, and this is the decision we came to and why we came to that decision. So I do appreciate the fact that you're asking these questions. That's your job, you know.
And I'm going to make a suggestion that once you come to a final determination as to what is in your fund balance, that you take a little bit of that money, allocate $20,000, $25,000 to an audit. Because I sincerely don't think that we can, and I don't mean to sound argumentative at all, I don't. But I don't know how we could go to our taxpayers and say to them, well, they're looking for a 212% increase, but they can't provide us with audited financial reports, so we're not really sure exactly where their finances stand. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a hard sell.
Right. Like I said, I appreciate the fact that the honesty and the want for transparency, you know, and I feel the same way. I know in our last committee meeting there, that was one thing I did say to our committee is that the audit has to happen at some point. And we need that to be able to come back to you and say, here's what our auditors say.
So I know you had stated in the beginning, which I was trying to write as fast as I could, you said that you covered 4% of sterling or 11% of sterling. And what's the percentage of calls for the town of Plainfield again?
We cover 79% of our call volumes to the town of Plainfield.
Okay, so 79% for Plainfield and then 11%. And then you said there was what, roughly like 4%?
Yeah, between transfer, the rest of it
Like
was
town
going to transfers and mutual aid calls to the other towns.
Okay. So now when you wrote down this percentage of the calls, I'm assuming what you're asking and requesting from the town of Plainfield versus the town of Sterling, what you're asking is based on those percentiles to some degree too, correct?
Yeah, so it's to be equitable to both towns. Again, having sat where you guys sat, if you came to me and you said, well, wait, you're only doing 15% of the calls, but you're asking me for, 75% of the funding, that's a problem.
Right.
So, yeah, that's absolutely, that's kind of how we're looking at it.
And then my other question is, you were talking about the private transport. So I had a background in PCA work, working with people with disabilities. I know that there is an ambulance service in Norwich where you can actually schedule. So like if someone is in a chair or, they can't get out, so you take on service like that, correct? Or does it have to be an emergency situation?
No, so you have to have a special license in the state of Connecticut to be able to even take somebody out of the hospital to bring them either to another hospital, a nursing home, doctor's appointment, wherever. So we obtained that license last year to be able to do that. And with that, we have that ability to do that. The difference, though, I will say, is that when it comes to private payer transports, it's a little bit different there because generally speaking, you need to get pre-authorization through the insurance companies, or you have to have the patient sign what's known as an ABN, an advanced beneficiary notice there, which pretty much tells the patient, you may be on the hook for this bill. Right now, we're not really set up to do the prior authorizations. What we've been doing is, when it comes to taking someone from their home and bringing them somewhere else there, it's usually hospice, and hospice has already done all of that. Or if we schedule for doctor's appointment, it's because the nursing home's already done all the legwork for us. And so now we know that we're going to be able to receive funding for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chief, I actually have a question. I'm just trying to understand the billing process. Oh, thank you. I'm just trying to understand how the billing process and your financials, who's in charge of that? Is that a separate company?
Yeah. So
what's the involvement with you guys?
Yeah, so when a call comes out, whether it's a transfer or 911 call, we generate a report. That report first is in-house. We look at it to make sure that we look at it from the clinical end of things to make sure that things are done appropriately. And then we also look to make sure billing information was put in appropriately. Then we send it off to our billing company. Our billing company then submits that claim to the insurance company. The insurance company does what the insurance company does. I'm not going to argue them one way or another. They come back, say, this is how much we're paying for this. We go, and then the billing company turns around and turns over revenue to us. Of course, they keep a certain percentage there for their services as well.
So would the treasurer be in charge of the overall finances, the
Yeah.
revenue and expenses? Is that?
Yeah, so our treasurer is the one who issues checks, does our payroll. We technically have a separate payroll company, but I submit to her everybody's timesheets for the bi-weekly there. So I verified all the timesheets. She takes care of the payroll process on that end. She also is the one that, of course, does pays any of our bills, things like that. So.
Is there any monthly reporting, like a P&L or our financial statements we use for the town? I'm sure you used it in Killingly, something like that.
Yeah, so I actually did ask for those recently from her because I wanted to understand a lot of things a lot better. And even the P&Ls that I've seen for the last, over the last year, well, actually I pulled 5 years worth of data, but it shows the same story that we're seeing, that you see with the 990 forms that are on the IRS website. We're showing losses no matter what we do, essentially. I will tell you that I am a little bit more frugal fiscally, and by a little bit I mean I am very frugal fiscally. I try not to spend money if we don't have to spend money. So, and I find ways to try to save money as well. but I can't find $51,000 yet to figure out how to save that without trying to, I think my biggest expense right now that I could try to control is the maintenance of vehicles, and that's by replacing an ambulance. So I know a lot of people look at it as, well, you're nonprofit, so that means you don't make profit. Well, nonprofit means that our board of directors can't take profit from this. What that doesn't mean is that we have to chronically take losses. We have to make, any business has to make money at the end of the day, even if it's just a little bit, to survive. That's really what it comes down to. But yeah, we do have a separate billing company because ambulance billing is, just like any medical billing, we have people that are special coders and things like that that understand the process a lot better than any of us.
Yeah, it makes sense, and you need to have like what we have for the town, our fund balance, in case something happens, you need something for that, so you're able.
Correct, and like the
There's a
year.
catastrophic failure in equipment.
Right, and like, I think it was the year 2021 when you saw that huge dip of over $100,000. That was the global pandemic. People were not calling 911. I was working for KP Ambulance at the time, the busiest service here in the Northeast, and I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs, which was very odd. I was used to doing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 calls a day, no problem. And then when I'm sitting there, I was just like, well, this is weird. I don't know what to do with myself now. We cleaned a lot of ambulances, I'll tell you that. But yeah, no, the reality is that global pandemic really hurt a lot of us there. Of course, not just us, everybody. So.
I know something that I think that could help us and help for the taxpayers would be if there's definitely any, just more details on the financials. I know I don't fully just feel confident in understanding, or if you guys are where you're at of where exactly this amount that you're asking from the town is coming from now. Like to back up like an equation, like we need this much money for vehicles, this much money for labor, projected, something like some type of breakdown that we could see of where the cost is needed, because I can see that you obviously need it if you're not making money.
Right, yeah, and like I mentioned things like the need for the building and the even with the finances, or not finances, if we were to get pay increases right now, that $2 increase, right now we don't have a sliding scale for our employees, so our employee that's been working there for 20 years is making the same amount of money as our employee coming in, a brand new employee coming in. If I went to a sliding scale, I did do that math, and it was an additional $68,000 right there annually. And then on top of that, again, looking at the future with the exhaust systems that need to be implemented, physicals that will need to be done, and there's other expenses that have to happen. Yeah, they're there.
It seems like
but yes,
yeah,
but I can understand what you're saying is that
Just
you want to see all the figures to say,
like
hey, where is this coming from?
Yeah, exactly. I think that would help everyone here and just the town understand the
Right.
increase.
Yeah. Because we have to be compliant with OSHA, we have to be compliant with everybody else there.
Yep.
So.
I just want to say thank you for the presentation. It really helped me understand everything about the American Legion Ambulance Company and how it works. It was
One more question I've heard a lot about out in the public. Are your board of directors volunteers or are they paid?
They're volunteers,
All of them?
all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Unfortunately, we're not considered as an emergency service like fire department, where the fire department can go out and tax people and get their income that way.
We're an emergency service, we're just getting taxed.
We just get taxed, so we have to look other ways to try to fund ourselves. And we've held out as long as we could, and we got ourselves into this predicament.
definitely sounds difficult.
I have another question.
Of course, yeah.
I guess I'm confused on the Medicare, and they usually have supplemental insurance if you have Medicare. That doesn't pay any ambulance costs?
It may pay some, but I'll tell you it doesn't pay the full bill. It may pay maybe a couple $100 more at best. That's what I've seen thus far.
And you don't bill the patient
We can't.
because of Medicare?
Because of the law. The way the laws are written, Medicare, Medicaid patients, we have to accept what we get. And we consider that bill paid in full.
So you get anything from any supplemental insurances?
Again, if we do, it's only a few $100 at best. It's not really a lot more. Yeah, like I said, the insurance companies don't want to pay. They're in a business to make money too, so I respect it. I'm not arguing capitalism here.
Do you know what percentage of your calls are actually done by Medicare, Medicaid recipients?
Yeah, so that was 56%.
That's 50.
Yeah, 56%.
I don't think we did that. Just
Yeah, no.
say thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate what you put together for us and all of you coming out and helping us really understand this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate where you're coming from and the difficulties you have with all of this. Like I said, I've been there before, and man, I'm happy to be out of town politics. But thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your time, and we will try to get an audit done or more concrete numbers for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next is to discuss the proposed procurement policy. Everything?
First of all, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to talk about modification to the procurement policy, something that really hasn't been done number-wise for many, many years. So this is a plan that Lisa had come up with, and I'm sure she'd be willing to speak with you individually on it. But we have a presentation of what we'd like to do with the procurement policy, and the idea is that we have to work with the Board of Finance to set a number. So that's really what I would say is in front of you. You have time to read it, and I would ask that you continue the conversation with Lisa, and maybe at a future meeting we can talk about what we can do to work together on making this happen.
I think we should table it then until Lisa's.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And that would give us
And
more
this
time
is
to...
just discussion only, so there's no...
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, this goes along with the packet that Lisa gave all of you, I believe, with the 5 different policies and what we're looking to do. So again, if you have questions on the other things as well, please reach out to her.
Does anyone want to discuss it among us? Any questions for Lisa that you want to bring back to her?
I'm not ready to actually
That's totally okay
go
with you.
any further with it at this point.
Yep.
I think that with budget season bearing down on us as hard as it is,
Yeah.
I think that perhaps that's something that needs to be looked at once we've decided on budgets and mill rates. And I'm not saying that it's not important. I think it is, but I just think that this might not be the right time to be looking at something like this.
I agree. It's just not.
Yeah, it's not the right time.
We're too busy.
Do you need a motion to table?
I don't believe so, because it's just a discussion. Yeah. Yep.
So we've discussed that we're not going to discuss it.
We've discussed that we're not going to discuss it. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is E, for amend the 2026 budget meeting schedule. And this would be because Virginia pointed out that our May 18th meeting, which says it's a Thursday because that is for our referendum, is actually, the Thursday would be May 21st, so we would be looking to adjust it from May 18th to May 21st, the correct date for that Thursday. For the
I'm telling you,
referendum.
I'm sorry, but I'm not.
No. That's perfect.
So I'd like to make a motion that we amend the meeting from listed as the 18th of May to the 21st of May.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor? Please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Virginia.
You're welcome.
Okay, and now we will move on to if the bylaw committee has any updates that they wanted to go to the board.
We don't. We're working really hard, the three of us, and we're plugging along. It's like slogging through mud at some points. I think that we're making great progress, and I think that very shortly we'll be willing to and ready to present a draft copy to the Board of Finance, but I don't think I can't give you a time.
So
Is just any updates on?
I did take an opportunity to watch last month's meeting, and it was stated that we might be ready to present in June. We are not going to be ready to present in June. We actually updated It is, it
I'll
is.
leave with that.
There's been a lot of changes, I will state that. And Linda and Virginia have been awesome. Lisa's been awesome. I think we're going to definitely, probably by the end of June, be ready to present to the Board of Finance for you guys to check it out. So I guess that's where we're at.
What are we meeting generally after?
So this coming
We're
Monday.
meeting the third.
Right, this coming Monday will start our pretty much every Monday meeting, so
We're out here at 5:30.
yes, 5:30 every Monday for anyone in the public who would like to come.
And it's on the municipal calendar. The more the merrier.
Just keep in mind with the Board of Finance members, we can't attend because we have a quorum now.
So Sean, I did take an opportunity, I was hoping to discuss this with the board last month, unfortunately I was not here, I was sick. But I did reach out to FOIA Commission
Yep.
on that question, because I know you had asked about that, if someone from the board. So what the commissioner said was that if a member would like to come to the meeting, as long as they are seated in the audience and they only ask questions pertaining to the subcommittee, to the bylaws, and then they leave immediately following, once the meeting adjourns, you need to leave, and that you are not to be given any special privileges by the subcommittee. So we can't address you as like a Board of Finance member, you're not afforded that at that meeting. Right. But if you want to, like, if the chair or the vice chair would like to come and observe, you are more than welcome. He said that would be fine. Okay? Or any other member.
Thank you for reaching out on that.
Absolutely.
Or any other person.
Yeah, or any other person.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure we weren't having a legal meeting.
Yeah, I did call just to verify, because I know we had discussed that. So I don't know if that helps, but
I'm sure it's great.
pretty much.
The next thing on the agenda would be adjournment.
Make a motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.